This is going to be a quick how-to video on how to fix the telescoping drive shafts for the 4 wheels on the Mini Revo, or the 1/16 Revo, or the Merv. Now, you're going to know that the drive shaft is broken if you notice that one of the tires is disconnected from the rest of the drive shaft assembly. And you'll also notice it if, when you give it throttle, just one side of the vehicle, whether it be the front or the back, it just doesn't work correctly. One tire is going to spin up and the other one isn't going to do anything. And the way you have to solve this is go out and get yourself a new thing of drive shaft, because in my case the yoke, or the joint part of it, broke right there. If I can get the right light, you can see exactly how it happened right there, which means that the joint has failed and we need to replace it. So let's go ahead and do that. In my case, the joint failure happened to the front left tire, but it could happen to any part of the drive shaft on the outside here. And the one thing you'll need to fix it is going to be part number TRX 7151, and that's going to give you any component of the drive shaft that may be broken in the assembly, and you can use that to fix either the front or the rear drive shafts. They are universal. Now let's get on to taking off this tire so we can have a better look at it. So I just have a little ratchet screwdriver here with a socket on the end, and I use that to take it off. Either using pliers or a flathead screwdriver, you need to take off this hex hub here. So I'm going to do that with my pair of pliers. Even though it's aluminum, it's quite rusted onto the shaft, so I need a little bit of force to take it off. And then you can also pop out this little pin, and do not lose it. It is very small, very delicate, and likes to get lost. More rust on this, so I'll have to pull it out as well. So here I can take out the output shaft by forcing out the end. And then there's also the other telescoping part of it that I can pull out. So there we go. That's the part we need to replace, and if this is your case, then you can stop watching and you could put it back together, but I'm going to show you how to do the other section of the telescoping shaft right here, if that's what your case is. But yeah, I have a replacement right here, brand new one. We slide that into there, and it should move very, very freely. And then we'll take apart a couple things and then slide this into the knuckle. So now we're going to take off the knuckle from the A-arm, and before you do that, you want to take note of the spacing that's right there at the bottom, because that is the part, or the screw, that we're going to be removing. So once we've noted that down, we can start loosening this off and taking the bottom part of the knuckle off. The reason being is that if you have that spacing set incorrectly, it's going to negatively affect the camber that was previously there, and then you'll have to retune that whole situation, which takes a while for all 4 tires. Okay, now that part is all loose, and then we can slide the drive shaft into the bearings of the knuckle. And then, noting down of the spacing before, we're going to put that screw back in. You can also loosen off the top one if you want as well, but also note if it's spacing, otherwise you're going to negatively affect the camber. And with that back together, we take our pin, slide that through, put on the hex hub, whether it be plastic or aluminum, push that on somehow, or maybe do that to help it. Okay, now the hex hub is back on, and if that was just the one section of the telescoping shaft that was broken, then you could put back on the tire and you'd be done. But if it was the upper section next to the differential, which I will have to set the camera well for you could see right there. There is another very similar joint. So if you need to replace that, I'll show you how right now. You're going to take a 1.5mm screwdriver, which is probably going to be the smallest of them in your collection. You need to find the tiny screw inside of there. You need to take that out of the yoke, which is right off of the differential, which is closest to the center of the vehicle. Now this is what the screw looks like. It's very small, and it just goes through there. But once you have the screw out, you can pull out that drive shaft. It's kind of hard to show on camera because all these components are so small. Yeah, and then you can pull out the drive shaft. Okay, ta-da! If this is the piece that was broken, you can get that inside the kit, which I have one right here, but this one here is already working fine, so I'm just gonna show you how to install that back in. It looks like from the back works best. You can bind it a little bit to get it on. Steer it, perhaps, and then slide that on there, and then push it back inside with some persuasion. And then, once again, it's really hard to show. Let me rearrange the camera. Okay, now this angle is much better. If you have large hands, I feel bad for you, but you're going to have to stick this tiny shaft back on that other tiny shaft. So just push it on, and it's only going to go on one way. So maybe just use 2 thumbs in between and then try rotating it around. The first time you do this, it's going to take a while, but it can be done. There we go. I have it back on the shaft. Find the open section of it where the little grub screw here can go into, and then screw that back in. That tiny little grub screw in there should be flush with the rest of the plastic. Then just put on the tire. Just a no-brainer. And you are done. And that is a process said and done. Now you should be able to drive your RC and it should work perfectly fine the way it did before. You're welcome.